I'd like to have Paul and Rich come up. And again, these two guys, tireless effort. Two great football players for the Big Red. And probably some of you recognize Rich. Rich's dad was our AD for many years, Roy Seils. And these guys are, a couple of those heroes that we've talked about, growing up. And when I asked that question, if they could step up and lead this process, there was no hesitation. So please, a round of applause for these guys. And we'll turn it over to you guys for a minute or two.
Thanks, Jibo. David, I don't know what Rich and I can do to follow your act, but I'll tell you, it won't be in song. Before we recognize the terrific co-publishers tonight who've so generously supported this effort, I want to thank a number of people without whose efforts this wouldn't have happened. And of course, Adam Weinberg is at the top of the heap, and it's great to have you here, Dr. Weinberg. But Nan, of course, is going to speak later, but she put her organization behind this. Julie Haupt, who I know is here as well. Steve Crawford, the whole organization for University Enhancement, I think it's called now, but just the whole development effort in putting this together. And then there's a guy by the name of Craig Hicks who has a bunch of information that he put together for us to help us honor everybody. And then, of course, Jack and his three coaches, Zach, Frank, and Austin, were big-time supporters in making this happen. So we really thank all of you for your efforts. So I don't know who came up with the co-publisher concept. I know it wasn't me, but in a conference call that we had with Rich and David and Jibo and Brian Geringer and some others, and it might have been Brian that came up with it actually, the whole idea of let's try to raise this money. It's going to take 25 to 27 to publish the book, and then we've got to ship it from the printer in China, which is a big-time expense. And then, we want to have something like this to honor the co-publishers. So we came up with that idea, and, we started to get the emails out, and everybody has responded. So when you hear about the accomplishments of some of these people, I mean, I'm humbled to be up here because thanks, Jibo, for saying that, I was a great football player. I did play. I enjoyed playing. I think I contributed, but when you hear about the accomplishments of some of these folks, it's just going to be awe-inspiring. What we've tried to do is gather as much information as we could, and David, of course, had a lot of that because Keith collected it and David put it together. And then we went to Craig to get that information, and Rich and I talked to colleagues as well to try to fill things out. So, there should have been an errors and omissions policy a little bit here too, because we may not get everything right. We may not have everything in there that should be in there, but we gave it a good try. So Rich and I are going to tag team this, and I'm going to start by honoring who actually is the first class, the oldest class, and this gentleman is Don Bren. Got to get my glasses out here to make sure I can read this correctly. Don Bren from the class of 52. So as I begin to talk, you can come up and we're going to shake your hand and give you your book. Don was a 4-year letterman and an All-American safety on the 1951 team. He ran 2 punts back for TDs in 51 his senior season. In addition, was the starting pitcher on the baseball team. And Don is a member of the Denison University Athletics Hall of Fame. The next gentleman is kind of part of the Piper family who came up big and contributed. Farsh and Mary Bashid, brother-in-law of David, and Mary's a structural engineer, and and Farsh is a jet propulsion lab technician, and as David pointed out, son Emmanuel is here as well. So Farsh, thank you. Charles Bellafato, class of 1989. Is Charles here? I haven't seen him, but yep, here he is. Chuck played single wing center, one of, I think, 7 that are here tonight. And I'll try to remember everybody who's a single wing center, obviously a special position. And he started in 1988. He lettered all 4 years. During the summer after he graduated from Denison, Chuck received a recommendation from Keith, got the job with this company, and is still with the same company 24 years later. So, Chuck. Nan Carney DeBoard. Nan is a 4-year letter winner in basketball and field hockey, and a member of the Denison Athletics Hall of Fame. Nan had a terrific coaching career at this school that's a little bit north of us, Ohio Wesleyan, I think the name is, and we were extremely lucky to get her to come join us a couple years ago to take over the athletics program. And Jack, not to be outdone, Jack was a fine athlete in his own right. Jack Carney DeBoard, class of 78, played 3 years of football at Denison, was a teammate of one of you, linebacker and letterman in 1974. My old roommate, Bob Chisholm. Chisholm was a 4-year letterman, 3-year starter, and 2-way lineman whenever it was needed, played mostly on defense. Bob was the most efficient defensive lineman on the 64 team. Bob. Jim and Lyda Cook, class of 56. Is Jim with us? They're here. Okay. Jim, I got a great quote from Keith here. Jim played football at Denison and later moved on to a football coaching career. And Lyda, his wife, and her twin sister attended Denison at the same time. And Coach Piper told Jim, best thing you ever did was to marry one of the Newman twins, Lyda. Dave Elliott. Dave Elliott, class of 1987. Dave here? He is not here. I'm going to tell you about Dave anyway, because he 4-year letterman, 3 years all conference pick at defensive end, co-captain of the team in 1986, as well as a 3-year NCAC baseball all-conference player at first base. And Dave is a member of the Denison University Athletics Hall of Fame. I know Ed Exler is here. It's going to take most of the page here. Dave, 4-year letterman at running back. Ed was co-captain and MVP of the 1972 team. He was a 3-time all-conference selection, ran for over 4,000 yards in his Denison career, and he can still walk up here and pick up his book. Incredible, Ed. David or Jim mentioned Dennis Frizzell. Dennis was in the class of 64, an outstanding all-conference safety who went on to coach at Ohio State and other places and ended up as head coach at University of Tampa. Henniger and I were talking, Bob Henniger and I, he'll be up here in a minute, and we said if Denny knew about this, and of course Denny passed away several years ago, if he knew about this and that we didn't include him, we'd be, in bad shape. I'll just leave it at that. So, Dennis, we want to honor you tonight with the co-publisher award as well. Ted Gulius, class of 1973. Ted, four-year letterman as a defensive back and co-captain of the 1972 team. All-conference honors as a safety in 1972. And both Ted and his wife, Jean Palmer Gulius, class of 77, are members of the Denison Athletics Hall of Fame. Tony Hall was mentioned earlier. Tony was the original tailback in Keith's single wing offense. He spent a year at Ohio State, and fortunately we were able to get him at Denison, and Tony did an outstanding job at tailback. Tremendous runner, fastest guy on the team, and a two-time All-American, as well as a 9-term congressman, 10 terms, how many? 12. 12-term congressman from Dayton, so he's served us well at the governmental level as well. So, Tony, thank you. Bruce Harlemert. I saw Bruce earlier, class of 1988. Four-year letterman as an offensive end. He caught 2 TD passes as a freshman to beat DePaul in an epic 21-20 battle in '84. So, Bruce, thanks for your support. Bob Henniger, class of 1964, and just as Tony was the original tailback, Henny was the original blocking back. Scott Smith, who we'll hear from later, the original single wing center. Henniger was a tremendous player for us. Thank God he didn't get hurt much, because I was the guy backing him up, and the team would have been in big trouble. During Henny's tenure as the quarterback, he wants to be referred to as a quarterback of the single wing offense. We went 15-2 and 1 tie, and Henny was co-captain of the 1963 team and all conference as well. And then Jack Heyer. Give Henny a hand here. Jack Heyer, well known to most of you in the room. 4-year starter at offensive guard, all conference OAC 72 and 73, and later an assistant coach for many years, 74 to 97 or so is what this says, and then later on was sports information director here at Denison, and he continues on as administrative director of the communications program. So, Jack, thanks. Rich, I think I'm going to turn it over to you for a while.
Don't leave, Paul. Paul, you're on a roll. We'll keep you up here for just one more. Paul is also a co-publisher. He was a 4-year team member, 3-year letterman, most efficient defensive back on the 64 team, which he led with 6 interceptions from his safety position. Paul is on the Board of Trustees here at Denison and has been a loyal Denison supporter over the many, many years. Paul, thank you, and thank you for all your efforts. Better get some glasses on here. It's a little darker up here than I thought. John Kimple. John? John was a 3-year letterman and a teammate of mine for several years. Good to see you, John. I haven't seen you today. He was second on the team in rushing on the outstanding 66 and 67 teams, which I believe our record was 14-4 over those 2 years. Very fine running back, great speed. Bob Canuti, class of 64. Bob was a 4-year letterman at both defensive end and offensive end position. He was co-captain and MVP of the 63 squad, which was 8-1, and earned all Ohio Conference honors as a defensive end that year. Bob Canuti. Dan Creer, class of 68. Dan was a 3-year team member and letterman as a wide receiver. He started his junior and senior years and led the team in receptions in 1967, also receiving the Most Improved Player Award that same year. Dan, thank you.
Tom Hattersley and Miss Charlie Ingram.
Tom Hattersley. Tom? Class of 72, a 4-year letterman at center. Keith used to always say he always put the best athlete at center, and then he would chuckle and say, of course, I was a center when I played. 4-year letterman at center, co-captain and MVP of the 71 team. He was selected All-OAC in 1970 and 71, and he was voted the most outstanding offensive lineman in the conference in 71. He's also a member of the Denison University Athletics Hall of Fame. Thank you, Tom.
Charlie Ingram.
Okay, great. Charlie Ingram, class of 79. Charlie also played center. There seems to be a real trend here with centers coming up. On the 75 team, which was 3-1 in the OAC and 5-4 overall. He's been a Denison University trustee from 1998 through 2004. Charlie, thank you. We got Canadian. Tom Mitchell, class of 93. Tom, a 3-year letterman, and as a starting defensive back, Tom recorded 119 tackles over his final 2 seasons at Denison. Tom, thank you for your support. Art Morrow, class of 65. Art, a 4-year letterman and a 2-way tackle, as well as a field goal and a PAT kicker. Art was a leader on the Denison teams that went 27-8-1 during his tenure. He was a standout also in track and field, and he still holds the Denison University records in the shot put in discus. He's a member of the Denison University Athletics Hall of Fame. Art, thank you. Brent Osborne, class of 62. Brent? Four-year letterman, co-captain of the 61 team at halfback. He was the leading rusher and scorer and was MVP in 1961 as well. He received All-American honors in lacrosse and is also a member of the Denison University Athletics Hall of Fame. Brent Osborne. Tom Perry, class of 86. Tom was a 3-year member and 1-year letterman as a defensive back on the 82 through 84 teams. Tom was instrumental in getting Keith Piper nominated and accepted into the Niles High School Athletic Hall of Fame in 2005. Tom, thank you. And the Piper family. First of all, Philomena Mike Piper. And I'll say this about Mike. Over the last several years when I would come over in the fall, Mike would always be sitting there, and I probably watched half of every game with Mike, and I certainly miss seeing her and the support that she has given to Denison and to Keith and to the family over the years. She was married to Keith for 51 years. She graduated from Denison at age 60, summa cum laude. And Denison's victory over Ohio Wesleyan in 2010 was the first Big Red home football game she had missed in 59 years. Wow. Great lady. Karen Piper Fleming, Baldwin Wallace College, 1969. Baldwin Wallace Athletic Hall of Fame. She played field hockey, basketball, tennis, and synchronized swimming. She was a busy lady. Karen, congratulations. And Bruce Piper. Where is Bruce? Here he comes. Bruce is the oldest of the four boys. Bruce graduated from Franciscan College in Steubenville in 1986. And David Piper. You know, David, I don't know how you pulled all this together. The work that he has done on this project over the last year has just been unbelievable. The phone calls, the emails, the writing, the editing that he's done, it was just phenomenal. We really appreciate the work that you did in finishing this book up because it means so much to every one of us in this room. Thank you very much.